Uh-oh, spaghetti-o. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle Haas. Breaking news, again, coming out in collecting land. We got ourselves an update on the CGC situation, although maybe this isn't really an update. Maybe this is something completely different, which ipso facto sort of makes the scam thing an update because now it all sort of connects to each other, and boy oh boy, how far down does this rabbit hole go? Things are getting spicy once again. You know, if this were Hot Ones, you would have thought that we already made it to, you know, the last dab. But we're not even close to the last dab, folks. We're only on question number 3. We're only on wing number 3 right now. That's how crazy this story might eventually get when it's all said and done, because we got ourselves another scam lawsuit coming out of the Paul Lesko Twitter, lawyer and hobbyist who often covers a lot of this, legal ramification stuff in the collectible world. He actually released a story earlier this morning about CGC coming out with an official lawsuit against a comic book scam swapper. And what's most interesting about this is that this is actually an employee, which means that this, in fact, was an inside job. So in this video, I'm going to read Paul's Twitter post, go through it with you guys, break it down, and then at the end of the video, kind of do a quick little recap. And again, what is so interesting about this is that even though this has so many connections and related things to everything going on with the Mark Jeweler Fuller situation, this feels like it might be a completely different person. But before I get into it, of course, if you guys could like, comment, subscribe, I appreciate it. Helps support the channel, doing those things. But let's get into this video here today. Now, here I have this tweet thread that Paul Lesko did. Now, I will put Paul's information in the description. I'll put a link to the tweet. You guys should definitely go give him a follow. But by his own description for context, he says he is a plaintiff's litigator, author of Gastric Bypass, writer of Law of Cards, Hot Chocolate Addict, and tweets are not legal advice. But he, this morning, again, came out with this official filing, this official lawsuit coming out of Florida that CGC put together. So I'm going to read through his thread. Let's break it down a little bit piece by piece, and then I'll give my thoughts when it is appropriate. New the hobby-ish lawsuit. It's CGC versus Brandon and Ayanna Terrazas. And let's do a live read of it. So here you guys see the United States District Court, Middle District of Florida, Tampa Division, Certified Collectible Group, Certified Guarantee Company are the plaintiffs versus Brandon Terrazas and an individual, and Ayanna Terrazas, this couple right here. And Paul does a really good job of sort of highlighting a certain legal jargon and then giving, the breakdown here. So I'm just really going to focus on his breakdown. The case starts out with a bang, as it's a lawsuit brought against 2 employees who abused their roles and privileges at CGC. And how they abuse their roles? Well, continue. They allegedly converted customers' property, collectible materials in violation of CGC policies, and printed CGC labels in order to improperly label low-grade collectible products as higher-grade collectible products. Translation, it appears they stole and sold shit and used CGC labels to make shit seem better than it was for their profit. CGC contends the defendants engaged in a fraudulent scheme of stealing customers' comic books from CGC facilities and generating duplicates of legitimate, authenticated CGC grade labels to make those lower graded comic books appear to be higher grade. So that's just part 1 of Paul covering this legal jargon. I actually went in and read through at least the images that he posted, and it does seem to be that these 2 people right here, Brandon Terrazas, was a CGC grader working for CGC, and Ayanna was also, who was his wife, was also working for CGC and was working in a different department. And apparently what he was doing is stealing books that were, as far as I understood, maybe they were being set to be graded. Perhaps they were like already graded and they had their grades assigned to them, but maybe they weren't slabbed yet. And he was taking those books and was literally just stealing them from the company and then would just sell them on eBay. So you have your kind of, bare bones, I'm just stealing comic books. And I guess what would end up happening is CGC would quote unquote lose those comic books, and then the customers would just have to file an insurance claim, and that was part of what he was doing. But then also in other situations, he was in fact swapping labels with certain comic books. I guess he was, if a book was graded at a certain thing, he would go to like the printing machine or something and print out a different version of that label with a higher grade and would put that label with the comic book, which sounds a lot like the reholder gate situation that we've been covering, although this still feels a little bit different. Let me carry on with the thread here. So Paul goes on to kind of break down like more of the legal jargon, which again, the legal jargon just talks about what CGC is. It's a grading company. They're legal things, that collectibles are something that people spend a lot of money on. And, it just kind of summarizes all this stuff. But here's kind of where the sexy part continues. It looks like Brandon Terrazas was a comic book grader with CGC, and his wife, Ayana, worked in receiving, verifying items from eBay and getting those to the grader. So receiving items from eBay, is that eBay authentication process? Yeah, this was a little bit confusing when I read the thing. I guess his wife was in the eBay related department at CGC. So apparently CGC has an eBay department within their building. Apparently, as a condition of their employment, CGC employees with only 4 sales exceptions cannot commercially deal in collectibles. Also, CGC employees can submit a maximum of 20 of their own items for free for grading. Frankly, that all makes sense. I mean, company perks right there. CGC investigations turned up that Brandon apparently admitted to stealing 23 customer-submitted comic books from CGC. As part of the alleged scheme, Brandon took customer-submitted comic books and discarded the books, CGC-graded wrapping and barcodes. He'd then sell the comic books on eBay or at trade shows where he got $26,895. For 7 of the stolen comic books, Brandon was unsatisfied with the grade actually received, so he swapped in duplicates of CGC labels with higher grades. He also allegedly admitted to submitting 5 comic books under Ayana's name for grading, which included Amazing Spider-Man 129, First Punisher, Amazing Spider-Man 16, Incredible Hulk 181, Batman 251, and Silver Surfer #1. It appears Brandon may have gotten caught when he sent an email to a CGC outside investigator. CGC then alleges that Brandon violated other CGC rules, as well as including selling on eBay as Terrazas the Collector. The complaint also alleges Ayana was complicit in these actions, including by assisting with advertising, marketing, offering for sale, and selling the comic books on eBay under their seller names of Omni Collector and Terrazas the Collector. And here are some examples of stuff that is listed in their eBay store. And the complaint alleges she consigned 5 comic books encapsulated with CGC graded labels to Comic Link, 4 of which were stolen and swapped. The complaint brings trademark infringement, conversion, conspiracy, and unjust enrichment against the defendants, and we're not done yet. Moves for preliminary injunction, temporary restraining order against both. In other words, CGC wants to shut this down immediately. The Pietro motion is pretty much repeat, but what jumps out to me is that CGC believes the admissions are incomplete. I'm sure a lot of you were already writing in the comments, 23, yeah, right, it's way more than 23. Well, by their own admission, they think that it is incomplete right here. CGC wants immediately to stop the Terrazas from further marketing, advertising, or sale of counterfeit goods, again, to shut that shit down. And that's about it. And then Paul goes on to sort of wrap up the article. And now all I have to say to that, folks, is boy, oh boy, does it just get weirder and weirder and crazier all the time. Now, there were some things that, I couldn't really go into detail. If you pull up this link to this Twitter and some of the images, which again, I'll put a link in the description if you guys want to do your own reading. There's little other nuggets that you can dig in there, but it is really interesting. I mean, here you have a former CGC grader that is abusing his position to be able to steal comic books, to swap labels, and then to resell them on the open market. And also, using the other auction houses, like things like Comic Link and things like that. So it is pretty crazy that this happens. And what's mostly so interesting about it is that in the filing, it says that he started working for CGC all the way back in 2022 and was first started to be investigated by CGC in May of 2023. So, this was well before the sort of reholder situation came out, which means that CGC kind of knew about all of this and, failed to sort of mention it or connect it to everything going on with the reholder gate situation. And here again is the most interesting part, something that I'll be able to share with you guys, although I can't go into full detail. But let's just say this. as far as I understand, in all the information that has come my way and people talking to me about the reholder situation, I do in fact have a couple names connected to the scam, although I can tell you right now, they are not the names Brandon Terrazas and Ayana Terrazas. So this does feel like a completely separate situation than what we saw with the Mark Jeweler Fooler, which again, I think adds credence to all those complaints of like, hey, if the Mark Jeweler Fooler was getting away with it, I mean, there's nothing to suggest that other people weren't doing it as well. And it does in fact seem like this other person was in fact doing it. Although you can make the argument that he was an employee of CGC, so this was an inside job. In fact, I've actually said before that this is actually more understandable. I mean, of course, there's going to be unscrupulous employees that, take advantage of the system or try to skin things off the top, but man, oh man, it is really, really crazy that this is an official filing coming out, an official complaint with CGC. And you just have to wonder once again, just how far does this go? Are we going to see more complaints coming out? When are we going to see the complaint about the Mark Jeweler Fooler? I mean, maybe this is the Mark Jeweler Fooler. I frankly don't know. It just doesn't seem like this is the same person. It doesn't seem like it is the same scam. But boy, when it rains, it certainly does pour. And what's just so funny about this to me is there are so many times, right, when people have always complained about CGC lost my book, or hey, this wasn't my book, or why did CGC give me this grade and all this stuff. Hey, my book is a 9.8. Why did I get a 9.6? All of these little things that just sort of make you spin your wheels and think to yourself, man, maybe the nurses were stealing grandpa's money. Maybe it was true the entire time. Well, folks, that's all I really have for this video. That was sort of the update of what's going on with this kind of new news and this lawsuit situation. I, of course, will keep you guys updated if there is new news to cover and new things coming out of this. Again, I will put a link in the description so you guys can check it out. Go give Paul Lesko a follow. He does a lot of good work on his Twitter. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. What do you guys think about the situation? Anyways, that's all I have for this video. Like, comment, subscribe. See you all in the next one.